Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I'm going to show you how to make your very own bath bombs, and in the honor of the event I even have my fuzzy bathrobe on. Actually, that's just because it's cold in my studio and I wanted to stay toasty. But these are really fun to make, and they only use a few simple ingredients, and you can totally make these with your kids because my kids actually made these with me. Now these were the last ones that we did. They came out really well. We did have a little trial and error, and I'm going to kind of show you what didn't work out so well. So on our first batch, we started to put everything together and I forgot to put the oil in the mix, so I added it afterwards. I think I got the mix a little too wet because it indented when it was drying. They're still fine, they're still going to work, but you do want to make sure that you check your ingredients, your wet ingredients and dry ingredients before you mix them together. And I will have the recipe we used in the video description. So if you notice that your recipe has gone wrong or you're just feeling like it's too dry, it's going to feel dry. Try not to be tempted to add more water, because if you do add more water, you're going to end up with something like this kind of squashed, you know, snowball snack cake looking thing. This crushed under its own weight. If you do end up in the situation where you're getting like big clumps of your material while you're whisking it and you can't seem to get it nice and smooth, you probably have too much moisture. And to combat that, so you can still have pretty bath bombs that will look nice, just go with a smaller mold. So find something smaller that you can mold it in, otherwise the weight of it is going to make it crush. So I'm going to show you how to package these up when we're done, like I did here. I just shrink wrapped them with some regular old kitchen plastic wrap, but we'll do that at the end because it doesn't make sense to package them first, I don't think. So the first thing that you need to have on hand is actually a tray like this that has plastic wrap in it, so that you'll be able to put your bath bombs there to dry, and then they're going to need to dry for 48 hours. So make sure you have a tray that you're not going to need for anything for the next 48 hours. And I'm going to go ahead and empty this out so that it is all ready to go, and I'm even going to dump the crumbs into the trash, but you can actually reuse the plastic wrap, that's fine. You could also put wax paper if you want, or put it on a silicone mat, just someplace they're not going to be disturbed and they're not going to be able to roll away. For supplies, you're going to need a mixing bowl. You don't need the whisk if you have a jar. I whisked last time, but I think a jar works better. You're going to need some molds, and I purchased these on Amazon, and they're just these little aluminum molds, and I'm actually glad I got these. They weren't very expensive, but somebody else told me their mold kept breaking because they were using plastic ones or using like break apart holiday ornaments, which you could totally use. They're just not going to be as durable, and you really need to put a lot of pressure when you're compressing the bath bombs so that they will hold together. And you're going to need a measuring spoon. You can use a teaspoon or a tablespoon. Just keep in mind that 3 teaspoons equal a tablespoon. So the recipe is pretty simple, and you can probably remember it, but I did write it down just so I don't forget. And again, I'm going to put it in the video description. The first thing you need is baking soda, and if you can remember 1 cup for baking soda and everything else half a cup, you'll be fine. So I'm going to use 1 full cup of baking soda. I'm just going to pour that in. Okay, 1 cup of baking soda. Then I'm going to a half cup measure, and you're going to need a half cup each of Epsom salts. And you can find this stuff at any drugstore, even most grocery stores will have it. So you get a half cup of Epsom salts and a half cup of cornstarch, and this is what binds it, I believe, because once they're dry, they're really quite hard and durable. I thought that they might be crumbly, but they're not. So 1/2 cup of cornstarch, and the magic ingredient is citric acid. So if you are looking for citric acid, you can get small containers of them, like in little jars, for a couple dollars, any place where they sell canning supplies. But if you're going to make a lot of these, it's going to be a lot cheaper to just buy this online, and I got this on Amazon for about $7 or $8, and this was 2 pounds worth. So I think you just get you probably get enough for about 1 batch if you get it at like the grocery store and the canning supply, and that's going to cost you probably $3 or $4. So, you know, it just depends on how much you want to make. This was good for us because we were making a bunch for gifts. Alright, so then what you want to do, actually, you know what, we are going to use that whisk. Let's seal that up so I don't drop it. And just so you know, I've probably got maybe half the bag left, and this is the 5th batch that I've made. And I'm just going to whisk these together because you need to make sure everything is dispersed. Because if you have any clumps, it's going to affect how your bath bomb holds together, and it's also going to affect the fizzing action when your recipient uses it. And I can see this fine layer of dust in the air, so hopefully it's not clinging to the camera and it's not obscuring your view. So once you feel like that's all homogenized, we are going to work with the wet ingredients. So I'm going to set this aside for a second. And in a jar, you're going to combine your wet ingredients. I just dropped it, but luckily the lid was on. I have 1 tablespoon of water in here already. And then to that, you are going to add a couple other things. We're going to add a tablespoon of oil, of either mineral oil. You actually can use like olive oil or soybean oil, but I chose mineral oil because it is not going to go rancid if they don't get used right away, and olive oil and soybean oil can go rancid. You can even melt coconut oil if you want to. So I need a tablespoon, so a tablespoon is 3 teaspoons, so that's why I'm mixing out 3 things. Get a little fuzzy for my bathrobe on the top of that baby oil container. And we are going to add in some food coloring. So let me decide what fragrance I want on this before I go for my food coloring. And I got these at AC Moore. And I recommend getting the fragrance at a craft store, a local craft store that takes coupons if you can, because it can be expensive. I'm actually going to pause this while I take this lid off because it's really tight and my hands are kind of greasy from the baby oil. Okay, so these come in little jars, as you can see there. I've only used them once for these bath bombs, but you can see I've got all the baking powder and stuff stuck to them. But I chose the one that had fruity fragrances. They also have a set that has more earthy, musky kind of fragrances, but I thought this would be nice for bath bombs. And there is black raspberry, what is that one? Vanilla, mango, coconut, pink grapefruit, and melon. I really love the pink grapefruit, so I think I'm going to do some more of those. And I'm actually going to measure out what a dropper full is, because I use 3 dropper fulls per batch, and that worked out really well. It's very fragrant when you're working on it though, so if you have anyone in your home that does not like strong smells, you might want to do it when they're not going to be around for a while, because it's really smelly. I mean, it smells good, but it's really smelly. So I am going to just measure out what a dropper full is. I reckon it's probably around a teaspoon, maybe not. Oh, not even, because the recipes I was seeing was saying like 6 teaspoons of fragrance, and I thought, boy, that seems like a lot. Yeah, so it's more like 1 teaspoon of fragrance is what I recommend, but of course you can do what you want. I find that was plenty fragrant, so use your own judgment. And then since it's pink grapefruit, I'm going to do the same colors I did with my other pink grapefruit ones, which was red and yellow, to make kind of like a fresh orange color. And any food coloring is fine. Even though we're going into something that has oil in it, it's still going to be fine. It will disperse because we're going to shake it up and then we're going to put it into our dry mixture. And that doesn't add enough liquid to it to really offset the recipe. So you can either whisk it or stir it with a fork, or you can shake it up, which I'm going to do here. And then we're going to bring over our dry ingredients. So the big thing is just to make sure you mix the wet and the dry ingredients separately. Okay, actually I think I put more food coloring in here than I did on any other attempts, but I think it's going to be alright. So I'm going to just slowly, you want to put this in slowly because you will start seeing the fizzing, and you don't want to use up all of the fizzing, because what it is the water is making the citric acid active with the baking soda, because it's the acid and the citric acid and the baking soda that gives you that bath fizz, gives you that reaction. So some of it's going to fizz, but you just want to go kind of slowly so you don't just have a big mountain of fizz here. And then I would just rinse that jar before I do my next batch, just to get the fragrance and the color out of the jar. And you're just going to keep whisking this until you get kind of like a fine sand, and it doesn't take very long. And I find this is one of those projects that the longer you draw it out, the worse the bath bombs end up. You want to kind of get in there and make those bath bombs and set them to dry. The more you mess around with it, if you pack it in the mold and you dump it out again, you pack it in again, I feel like it's either drying out or something. It doesn't want to hold together that well if you keep messing with it. Okay, and then with my hands, your whisk should be pretty dry. I like to reach in there, make sure that there aren't any like white areas on the bottom, so when you're using a color that actually helps you see that everything's mixed up really well. I'm going to roll up my sleeves. I actually have a blue sweater, the same color underneath. And then to make the bath bombs, you want 2 halves of your mold, and these can be any kind of mold really, but the thing is that you really need to overfill these molds. See, like all that excess, and you're going to press it together because you need to really pack that in like you're making a sandcastle. Really just pack it in. And I like to squish them together like that because that way I don't end up with like, they just integrate better. If you fill up each half and then you put them together where they meet, if it's been packed down at all, it doesn't want to hold. And there's one side, and just gently lift off the other mold, and then you have a beautiful bath bomb. If you're really gentle, you could probably take that seam out. I didn't bother doing that with the others because I was so afraid they were going to break. But then you're going to set that gently down on your plastic wrap surface to dry. Now, when I was doing this with the girls, we had a few errors where we had to, like, they crushed, they either got banged or the things just kind of fell apart because we didn't press them together hard enough. Because you're compressing that. There's a lot of material going in here. And so I had to, like, dump the stuff back in here. So it really does affect how well it's going to stay together if you do it on the first try or if you have to keep doing it. Be very gentle because they are strong when they're dry, but they're very weak until then. And I'm just going to gently set that over on the plastic wrap. Now, I was finding that I could get 2 large ones, 2 medium, and 2 small from one batch. I think I like the medium size the best. It was weird, the set of molds I had came with 3 or 4 full large molds, and then it came with 1 medium and 1 small, and I kind of would prefer to have more of the medium ones. But since they don't have to dry in there, if you're just doing it by yourself, it doesn't matter. You only need one of, you know, one of whatever size you want. And we're just going to use up the rest of the material here, and then I'll show you them when they are all drying on the plastic wrap. When you get to the end of your batch, you're going to find that it's kind of difficult to get enough in your mold so that you can press it tightly. So here's what you do in that case. So you want to close your mold, and you can feel that you don't have quite as much pressure there as you want to. So then what you want to do, just compress in what you can, and then lift it off. And then what I do is I take out the bath bomb, and I can feel that it's not as dense. It's lighter than the ones I was just doing. And then I will dump some more. I'll fill up that cavity again. And then I'll put this in. Oop. See, it broke on me because it wasn't dense enough. I'm going to show you that again. You basically just need that pressure in there. And you don't want to waste all that leftover material. You want to get that used up. So basically you just need to fill, almost like fill it 1.5 times. So we'll just leave that one right there. We're going to add more, as much as we can, into this side. And then we're going to press it together again. If I could take it off, I try to offset the seam so it's going the opposite way, just so that I get a different direction of pressure pushing in on these, but this should work too, because you do need them really dense in order to dry properly. And then what I'll often do, because I don't dare to start another batch with this still in here, because I don't want to waste a whole batch of stuff. What I'll do is I'll put this ending part, this just leftovers, in like a baggie, and then, you know, whoever's taking the next bath can just throw it in their tub. Now, I will warn you, if you seal this in a baggie, you'll notice the baggie will blow up, kind of like a balloon inflating. And that's just, as it dries, that evaporation of the water is like making everything react. So it's just kind of neat, kind of a science experiment, I guess. So I have found that when I have done my last 2 batches that were a little more successful, I felt like I couldn't get quite as much because I was putting more pressure. So I actually got 3 smalls, 1 medium, and 2 large from this. But those should be really good. They felt like they were really solid. And I'm going to set this aside, then I'm going to show you how to package up the dried ones. All you need to package up these is just some regular old saran wrap, and I do like this. Actually, this isn't even saran brand. This is like the, you know, Walmart brand. You just want to pull out about like 5 inches of the film, and then you're going to draw this across. And then what I actually like to do is make that a little bit smaller. So I'll put this back on the little tear thing. I do really like these little tear things, and pull it that way. Then I'm going to grab my bath bomb, and I'm going to see what side is the prettiest, which would be this one, I think. I'm going to put that one down, so that will be on the top of the film, and then I'm just going to wrap around the plastic wrap. Just want to make sure that everything gets covered. Now, if you do end up getting a hole after you shrink wrap it, you can just tear off a little piece of that, like excess, or you can use that one for a smaller one, and you can patch it. Just lay a little square of it over where you have the hole, and then you can heat over it, and it'll disappear. So then what I like to do is start on the prettier side, and it's going to just shrink that film down. A hairdryer works just fine. And in fact, if that's hot enough to burn your fingers, you got to pull the heat gun away. You don't want it that hot, or you're going to burn a hole through it. And then when you get to the overlap spots, it's just going to shrink it down and make it look really neat, very professional. And you can see it just takes a couple seconds per bath bomb to do this. Now if you burn a little hole in it, I think I burnt a little hole in it right there, or maybe I didn't have the pieces matching up very well. I'm just going to take a little scrap. And you can see how much more rugged these are now that they're dry. We had to be so gentle with them when they were still wet. Just lay that little scrap over there, heat it for a second, and that's going to cover it right up. And then this is packaged and ready to use. You might want to make sure you don't have any crumbs from another color in there before you do it, but I think these are just adorable. So, you know, use those smaller pieces if they're big enough for the smaller bombs. For a medium or a small one, I would just pull out less, and then I would cut it across once and cut it in half. If you don't have a cutter like this, you can use scissors. It is a little more difficult, and this like box of saran wrap is like $3, so it's not like it's any more expensive than any other kind. Just wrap it around. The key is not to have excess, because if you have excess, then it doesn't look as nice. You want to have just enough to put one layer on, and then the overlap on the bottom. But then again, it's going to look really cute any way you look at it. So I think it's a lot of fun, and I hope you give it a try. Now, something I'm going to try is putting some pressed flowers on the outside of these, and I'm going to give that a try. If it's successful, I'll show you how I did that. I wanted to pop in with another idea. I actually was looking at the pressed flowers ones we just did. These aren't them. These are ones that were dry. And the flower petals are lifting right up off the bath bomb. So there's absolutely no advantage to putting them in now, making it more difficult on yourself, trying to get them in the molds. So much easier just to do it when you decorate it, because if they're not going to stick anyway, you might as well do it this way. Now, that said, I'm sure there are people that are putting flower petals in their bath bombs and they're staying just fine and dandy, but this method is not the way to do it if you want them to stay to the bath bombs. Just putting them in the packaging when you decorate it, I think that's the way to go. It's easy, and then you don't waste any of your flowers if something goes wrong. So one other thing I wanted to share with you, because I thought this worked out really well, I actually experimented at the end of my last batch with taking some of the leftover powder that I had from a previous batch, the dregs if you will, and I actually combined it with the tail end of another one in one bomb, and this allows you to get a multi-tone bath bomb. So I'm just going to kind of show you how to do that. You want to find a mold, and it might look like I have a lot of powder here, but really this is enough because it's all loose just to make a small one, because you need that pressure in there when you are putting them together. I'm going to get what I can in there. I'll pour that in there as much as I can, and then I'm going to compress these two together. And this is not enough. This is just step one, but this is a way to use up those leftovers. Okay, I got a little flower stem in there because I was playing with those pressed flowers, and then we're going to fill that up again, and we're going to press it in one more time. And that's probably good, but you can repeat that if you need to fill up your bath mold. You always will end up with a little bit, but if you do 4 or 5 batches and that's all you have for leftover, that's not bad, rather than having almost a bath bomb's worth left over after each thing. And so there you go, you've got a little stripe. Add it into the other side of the mold, because you can see it's crumbling, doesn't have enough. I mean, it's surprising how much dry powder it takes to make a bath bomb. It really takes quite a bit, and I like to alternate the seam there. I just feel like it makes a stronger bath bomb, and it gives you a neater pattern. So every time I'm compressing this, I can feel that I'm getting closer to that tightness that I want in the bath bomb. Ooh, well, you got a cool stripe in there. I'm going to add just more in the middle and see if that works. And there we go, we got that cool stripe in there, and it looks pretty cool for a bath bomb, I think. And it's just a way, look at that, hardly any left over from those 2 batches I just did tonight, and then you get an interesting looking bath bomb. So there you have it. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy crafting and happy bathing. Bathing, is that a word? Probably not. See you later.